Remember when adulthood meant freedom, stability, and the possibility of success? Yeah, about that. It turns out it's really anxiety, no savings, and a pretty dim future. Growing up, our pathway to become successful in life seemed simple to follow. The expectation growing up was that if we worked hard and we went to university, that we would be better off than our parents and grandparents. But why does it seem like this is no longer true for us? It seems that every day that we grow older, the things from the past seem to drift further and further from our reach. The world that we thought we would inherit as adults has completely changed. Adulthood, growing up as kids, appeared to be a world of freedom and hope. We would be able to afford an apartment, a home, we would be able to start a family. We would have a job that was enough to do more than just survive. But all of these dreams that were once a reality seem to have now been stripped from us. Now, finally functioning as an adult in this new world, it feels like I've been smacked in the face with the cold truth. And this is a cold truth that I keep hearing over and over again with younger adults in this economy.
Does anyone else just work their ass off for like the last 3 or 4 years for like a college degree, and now you have a job that you hate and you still can't afford life and you're still fucking miserable and you can't pay any of your bills and you can't live in the house that you imagine, and you just feel lied to? Because you thought that if you just went to college and got a degree, you'd be able to afford a house and like things that make you happy, but yet you're still barely can afford groceries or clothes or literally anything that makes you happy at all, and you had to spend the whole entire weekend in your bed because you literally don't have any money to go do anything other, like if you buy food you just can't have an entertainment budget. So I'm just wondering if anyone else is dealing with something like this, or if it's just me, because this shit ain't it.
When someone can work full time, they do everything they were told to do, and still have nothing left at the end of the month, that's not a personal failure, that's a structural one. While the cost of living keeps rising, wages haven't kept pace. Younger generations are working just as hard and often in the same jobs as their parents and grandparents. But the caveat here is that the pay no longer supports a stable life, which is slowly making life feel impossible for us. But how are we supposed to survive in a society like this? With the housing crisis we are experiencing, it honestly feels like our generation will never be able to afford a home, but it just doesn't stop at housing either. We've also seen the cost of college skyrocket over the years, forcing us to take on more debt than ever before. Before we even get started in our adult lives, we're already burdened with high interest student loans that set us back even further, which is why I think a lot of Gen Z are opting out of college and going into the trades and not following that traditional path anymore. But on top of all this, we're also dealing with inflation. But how does rising inflation actually affect us? Well, that's a good question. Inflation affects almost every single part of our modern lives. Groceries cost more, gas costs more, rent costs more, utilities cost more, and all this stacks up on top of already rising housing and education costs. But inflation doesn't just affect the things we buy, it also affects our wages as well. Let's say inflation is 6% this year, but your raise is only 3%. That means you're losing purchasing power, but how does that actually work? Let's say you make 50 grand a year, at 3% on 50 grand gives you an extra $1,500. Sounds pretty decent, right? An extra $1,500 feels like you are moving up financially, but not when inflation enters the picture. If inflation is 6%, this means we take 6% of that $50,000, which is your salary, and that same lifestyle now costs about $3,000 more than it did before. So even though you made $1,500 more from your 3% raise, life became $3,000 more expensive, which means you're actually $1,500 behind despite getting this raise. You didn't move forward, you fell backwards. And that's what losing purchasing power really means. And I think this is why many young workers are job switching more than ever before. Now, I think a lot of younger adults are struggling to find meaning in this new economy. We did everything we were told to. We went to school, we got jobs, we followed the rules. But somehow, it still doesn't feel like it's enough. I never imagined that at 26, with what would be considered a well-paying job, I'd still be living at home. I don't think this is something to be embarrassed about either. As long as you're making strides to improve your life and not waste it away while living at home, it shouldn't matter if you are at home or in your own place. It's better than faking success or trying to prove to people that you made it in life by attempting to afford a life that you really cannot afford. Online, we're constantly showing people our age who seem to be doing better, traveling, buying homes, living independently, but we almost never see the full picture of it. I think if we actually broke down how many people are being quietly supported by parents or grandparents, our sense of comparison would look very, very different. That doesn't mean those people didn't work hard, it just means starting lines weren't equal. Somewhere along the way, adulthood stopped feeling exciting for many of us, not because we stopped trying, but because the rules we grew up with were thrown out the window. It's not that we don't want to work or build something meaningful, it's that so much of our energy goes into just staying afloat versus living. So, what is the point of trying harder in life when our reward is that we get less than previous generations? And when survival takes up all your focus, we stop asking bigger questions about ourselves and what we truly want out of life. Like, who do I want to be in this life? What kind of life do I actually want for myself? Instead, you start asking, can I afford rent this month? Can I afford groceries this week? And when that becomes normal, it slowly wears you down and we become burnt out. Not all at once, but it happens day by day. And I think the hardest part is thinking that you're failing, when in reality, you're just living in a system that makes it feel impossible right now. But even with all this, I don't think it's hopeless. We should question, we should push back, we should talk about what isn't working. Change starts with people noticing when something's broken and refusing to pretend that it's normal. We still have the ability to demand better, to imagine something better, not overnight, not easily, but slowly. Because when people stop caring, when people stop trying, that's when things truly start to fall apart. So even if adulthood isn't what we were promised when we were kids, even if the path forward feels uncertain, we have to keep going, not because it's easy, but because the alternative is to give up.